Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today is financial advisor Jody Lynn Craven.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
And we don't have a guest scheduled. Well, we did have a guest scheduled for today, but she had to cancel at the last minute. She was planning to be on the show because her book was about to be launched and released, and it was supposed to be part of the big book launch. But one little thing got in the way. The publisher actually hasn't published it yet.
Oh, no.
So, yeah. So she's kind of at wit's end trying to deal with that. So she'll be back at another time, yet to be determined. But that's okay because Jody and I love to just chat about all. In fact, we actually did something here that we normally do after show. Like anybody who's ever been on the show, either as a co-host or a guest, very often we have what we call after show chats. They can last anywhere from 2 minutes to 2 hours. Anywhere in that range doesn't make any difference. And we did it kind of in reverse because we were having our after show chat before the show.
We were.
Which was kind of fun,
Yeah.
So and that's my long-winded way of saying if you were trying to watch us on Facebook and it all timed out, I hope you found us on YouTube because that's why it timed out because we just spent so much time doing this pre-show chat.
Yeah.
So, thank you for finding us. If you do find us, we appreciate that. If you didn't find us, well, listen to the replay. That's why we do replays.
That's right.
Oh my goodness. We were talking about a number of things before we got going. I was sharing some things going on with my life. She was sharing some things going on with her life. And it occurs to me, Jody, that all of these things have one thing in common. As much as I believe that 10 years from now, 15 years from now, money is going to be thought of completely differently from the way it is now, it's still thought of the way it is now.
Mm-hmm.
We still all deal with it. We're all kind of governed by it. We're all, unless we reach that stage, as many people have, including some guests on the show, where money isn't an issue anymore. Most of us have to deal with money issues every day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a source of stress. It's a source. It's also, it's a great growth opportunity. I know that from personal experience. I've been growing for the last 10 years, but it is a great growth opportunity. It's a great opportunity to kind of dig deep and learn about yourself because it turns out that's where it all starts, which is one of the hardest lessons to learn. It took me a long time to get that one. Well, I can't say that entirely. I did understand it to a point.
Mm-hmm.
I understood it to the point that I knew that it was down to me doing what I needed to do. What I didn't realize is that it was down to me thinking what I needed to think.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize how important that was. I thought you just kind of planned something out and then you went for it.
Yes.
I didn't realize that the mindset matters every single day because if you don't pay attention to it, it will undermine you.
Yes. 100%.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
yes.
that's huge. That's a big part of what law of attraction is about. Mm-hmm. That's a big part about, well, you're a financial planner. It's a big part of what financial planning is about. What's the story you told, right? You set all these people up. You go and you get these clients set up. You straighten out their finances, get them the investments going, check back a year later and they were right back where they were.
Yeah.
Because the mindset didn't stay the way it needed to stay.
Yeah. And I would say coupled with their energy. So the mindset in what they're thinking and what they're expecting for their life. Because we get into this habit of expecting limits or expecting lack or expecting just enough. And then we recreate that in our life and we bring that energy to the table. We're not a match to what our desires are or what we say that we desire in this moment. Most often we are not energetically matched to that. That's huge.
It's amazing too how easily we slip out of it too.
Mm-hmm.
We slip out of that desirable mindset.
Yes.
I don't know if I told you, I had a guest on about 2 weeks ago named Janet Schmidt. She was on Thursday with me and she's an NLP expert. She is a hypnotherapist. She has a number of these different skills and I was so impressed with her. Kind of like first time I talked with you too, only in her case, it's a little different. I said, I want to consult you because I want to try to get rid of some of these money blocks that I still haven't been able to get rid of over the years. Cause I know that they're there, that was the big part. Oh yeah, I recognize now that they're there. Oh yeah. Okay. There's what's holding me back. So I get it. But I've been working on it and some of it I made good ground on, others I wasn't getting anywhere. So I said, okay, let's set up a session. And she was very kind, very helpful. And we did the session, let's see, when was it? We did it I guess she was on the show 3 weeks ago, and we did the session 8 days after that. So that'd be just under, like 10 days ago, something like that. And it's an interesting experience to go through because you're literally reprogramming your subconscious mind consciously with the help of somebody else. Now she also brings extra skills to the table. Like you, she is also a channeler.
Very
and
cool.
She doesn't tell all her clients that. She tells me, obviously, because, you know, I'm kind of open to all this kind of stuff. But she has a lot of corporate clients, CEOs and so forth. And she doesn't tell them because she doesn't want to freak them out. But she uses the channeling when she's providing the hypnotherapy service to figure out what's the best thing to give to the client, which is pretty interesting. Very interesting. Yep. So anyway, she and I worked through what it was I needed. She ended up running me through this. She described it on the show. There's like 4 different, I guess you call modalities or whatever, different methods that she uses that she kind of combines into one thing. And we went through all 4 of them. And when we were done, she also basically gave me affirmations. I'll call them that. She calls them balances. And what she means by that is she kind of helps go in and kind of tweak your subconscious mind, the way it looks at things and thinks about things, using these affirmative statements that she calls a balance statement. And then once we identify what the balances were and she went in and did those tweaks, then she asked me to record them in my own voice and play them back to myself morning and evening, which I've been doing since then. And that's the part that I wanted to talk about here, because what I've been experiencing as I'm playing them every day is cognitive dissonance. On the one hand, I'm hearing the message. On the other hand, I'm hearing the other part of my brain saying, no, that's not the way it works. The little tennis match going on. And it's very visible because I have the one that I'm constantly deliberately putting into my consciousness and to my subconsciousness.
Yep.
And meanwhile, my subconsciousness is saying, nope, not happening that way.
You know what? A lot of times I find that voice is coming from a place that it sounds retarded, but it's coming from the stance that this old programming served you or is serving you in some way. So I always ask the question when my mind does that tennis match, like, what's the benefit of me hanging on to this? There's always a benefit. You only do things that benefit you. True. It might be like the most atrocious way to get what you need. However, you're like, no, that's how I do it. So it's this perception of safety that you've locked onto, or, you know, a lot of people have trouble believing something different can happen even because, you know, if they have hope, they might be disappointed. So they're trying to save themselves from the disappointment, but there's always a benefit. So I start with that question. What is the benefit of me holding on to this belief system? What am I getting out of it? And then if you allow yourself, like that part of the brain, that part of yourself to start talking and answering the question, well, it's safer this way. Well, I'm not going to get hurt. Well, it's doing this. Once you know that, you can start to break the connection between the two. Like, is that the only way that I can be safe? No. Is that the only way that I can, you know, not have my feelings hurt? Or is it possible my feelings are going to be hurt anyway because you're going down a path you don't even want to go down? It's a fascinating dialogue within your head on why you do what you do.
Yeah, no doubt. Absolutely no doubt about it. And I'll give you a little insight into what goes on in my head. I've already told you the story before I met Louise, what was going through my head whenever I was trying to succeed and failing miserably in the dating scene. Because I had this little message that kept saying over and over again, well, she won't want to be with you. She won't want to be with you. Didn't matter who it was. I hadn't even met her yet. I hadn't even talked to her yet. I saw her across the room. Nope, she wouldn't want to be with you. You know, it's like instant self-defeat, right?
Yeah.
And I had the results to prove it. It worked really well.
Yeah. You got exactly what you wanted.
In a sense, in a weird sense. That's exactly what I wanted. Now, was it really what I wanted? Absolutely not. But what it did do is it built up a belief that was really strong. Yeah. And the belief was true for all intents and purposes. It was right. None of them would want me. I was absolutely correct about that.
Yeah.
And as you get the reinforcement over and over and over again, it just reinforces the belief. It gets stronger and stronger and stronger. I think the same thing happens with money issues. I know it has in my own case because we've been dealing with money issues now for I mean, there's definitely been improvement, but the money issues really started in the early 2000s and culminated with the 2008 financial crisis. So
Right.
it's been almost 20 years of constant messaging going into my head saying, well, you're not going to get anywhere. This isn't going to work. You're not going to get
Yep.
anything out of that one. This is anything you ever do never works. You know that.
Oh, ow.
Yeah.
Not true. And you know what's interesting? You take that a step further. You've built the thought, and then that built, if you will, this foundational belief. Now you have this foundational belief, and it could be any belief, money or relationship. It doesn't actually matter. Whatever this foundational belief is. And then your brain, the bigger the reaction is to things, the more the brain is paying attention. So if, say for example, that nothing ever works out for me, if it's like a big visceral, like huff and puff and like, nothing ever works out for me, your brain's like, cue, got it. I'm watching for that. And then your brain, because of the reticular activator, goes searching to prove you right. So now your brain is on a mission to give you all of these examples that you're right, that nothing ever works out.
Which is really good at, by the way.
It's really good. It's really good at finding what you want. So in my program, the Flow Money Blueprint, this is a huge part of it, is learning that you do that and figuring out or having a process to reprogram that brain. Or reprogram your brain. And I call it the CAST program. You celebrate, then you acknowledge what it is, what is the story going on inside of your head. You calm the system down, because when you are out to lunch, like you're in that fight or flight state, you can't make reasonable decisions. You can't reason with yourself or logic yourself. It's just, you're in this state of fear, and it's run or hide, So you need to calm that system, and then you start to debunk it by asking, is it true? Is it absolutely true? So we'll go back to what you just said. Nothing ever works out for me. Is that absolutely true? Well, you have a wonderful podcast, so no, it's not absolutely true. You have amazing guests on your podcast that love you. You got people in your life that think you're amazing. I'm one of them. You have a relationship with a woman that you love.
That's true.
You start, what I call that is creating evidence. Like you're building a case for yourself, like a lawyer would. And what I used to do with stuff that was really stuck is I would actually write this stuff down. Like, see, brain, it's not true because of this. And the more I looked for the opposite, the more my brain started to shift over and look for that opposite result. But I had to do it manually at first because it was stuck so deeply with things that I was stuck very deeply on.
Well, that's just the thing. When it gets stuck that deeply, and I know it has been for me in a number of different ways. One of the reasons I wanted to do the hypnotherapy, I was so tired of trying to find a way to, overturn it. Is that one of the ways that I knew it, though, is that every time that I would try a new process, and what you described, actually, I've done stuff similar to that, and it works for a while. Yeah. But over time, what happens is that if it's deep enough in there, if it's firmly enough embedded, the tape can outlast you.
Yes.
You do the work for a while, and you do it, and you do it, and you do it, and the tape just, it says, haha, I'm stronger than you are. I can do this forever.
Has a longer recording time.
That's right. Yes. Well, tape lasts forever. How long does it take to wear out a tape? When we used tapes for tape recording, depending on what kind of tape it was, a cassette tape, it would wear out faster, but even a cassette tape would last years. A reel-to-reel tape, that could last generations. And it's kind of the same thing with the subconscious tape. Those tapes they're really good. I mean, you really have to erase the damn things.
Well, and a lot of times beliefs, I would say 99.99999% of the time, when it comes to money in my coaching business or my brokerage business, any of the beliefs that I've seen around money with students, clients, or myself, 99.99% of the time, they have nothing to do with money. It is a deeper issue. So if you're not actually getting to the root of that deeper issue, of course that tape is going to play in the background and you're not going to be able to get it because you haven't gone deep enough to find out what the real issue is. Because when people work on relationships or money, they focus on just the money part or just the relationship part and don't see how it infiltrates in all areas of our life.
Which it certainly does. And
Mm-hmm.
that's something that doing the show has certainly helped me with, because I've had a lot of great teachers, including yourself, who have come on and given me some really good ideas. And among the ideas that I've picked up, I've learned that we actually do have other things going in our lives, and it takes a little time, a little doing to unearth them, to kind of figure out what they are.
Yeah.
But they're there. And the more that I unearth them, the more I realize, oh yeah, that probably is connected. Oh yeah, this one probably is as well. And it's like a long series of them. There's a whole bunch of them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they've accumulated, they've built up over time. There's a lot of them. The dam is pretty big.
Yep.
So it can hold back a lot of stuff there.
Oh yeah. One of the most common beliefs that I see with money is there isn't enough. There's not enough. And you can start with myself anyway. And my students, I saw that this rippled out into many areas. So for me, it was not enough money, but it was also not enough time. I never had enough time. I always felt behind. So that was my indicator that, it was also running a program that not enough in terms of time and getting stuff done. I never did enough. I never accomplished enough in my day to feel proud. And it was me telling myself these things based on this belief system that it's never enough. There was never enough love. There was never enough. I was never skinny enough. I was never pretty enough. Like, it was all of these things that I could see were never enough. So if we go back to that conversation of just that one track of money, not enough money, even if you're working really hard on reprogramming that, and that's maybe going well, you're fighting against all of these other programming that's connected to it.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And you have to kind of unearth all of that. Now, I will also say one of the reasons I went to Janet is because she also specializes in helping to stop programs that are generational. Because we can inherit this kind of stuff, so to speak. I'm not sure exactly how we inherit it, but boy, we really do. It shows up in our lives and like, oh my goodness, where did that come from? Oh yeah, my grandparents did the same thing. So did my parents. Ooh, okay.
When you think about how we're created, like let's say grandma has all of her eggs, and then she gets pregnant with mom, and mom, the moment that she is created and all of those, baby is formed and all of that stuff, a woman is born with all of their eggs. So the you that you became, or a portion of you that became, is in the egg when your mom was in grandma.
That's an interesting point. I hadn't thought of that.
It's impacting the mother, which is also impacting the future children. So you can see that lineage right there, and how that generational trauma is passed down very quickly.
That's a very strong argument for what they call epigenetics right there. That's a very strong argument for it. Because, I mean, honestly, modern science hasn't really figured most of the stuff out yet. They figured out little pieces of it so far, but there's a lot more to learn. And
for sure.
I suspect this is what you're describing is going to be a big portion of it. I hadn't thought of that, though. That's a great point. In fact, it kind of makes me ask a question. At what point does the egg get created?
I don't actually know the answer to that question.
You know what I mean, right? Like, how old is this egg anyway?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I know that when a baby is born, a female baby is born, they're born with all of their eggs.
Right.
So at some point before they're done cooking and they come out, all of the eggs are created.
Yeah. So, and then the other part of it is, and this is where it starts to get really metaphysical, where exactly do the eggs come from? I mean, presumably they're made from a combination of genetic material and other molecular structures and so forth. But beyond, I mean, that's kind of like saying, water comes from a swimming pool. It doesn't really tell you a whole lot.
Yeah. No kidding. Yeah. I don't know. The cell divides and then eventually looks like a baby.
Yeah, that's it. That's pretty much what medical science understands. Well, the cells divide. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
we'll explain it that way.
Yeah. How does it even know that this is supposed to be the portion that creates the egg versus the nose or the eyeball?
This is where I think we can start to make a much stronger case for what we often talk about, the idea of a source energy that creates everything. Because that source energy, when it has a mind behind it, or actually a series of minds behind it, yeah, you could see how that becomes at least the beginning of an explanation beyond what science can tell us. So interesting stuff there. But anyway, getting back to what I experienced with Janet. So I've been playing the tape every day, right? And not only am I noticing the tennis match, I'm also noticing shifts in mood.
Ooh.
Like I'll get frustrated. Frustration is one of my favorite negative emotions. I'm very good at it. And so I'll experience frustration, and I'll have experienced it enough. I'll say, okay, I got to walk away from this. I know what's going on here. I got to flip my script some way. I got to, change my mindset. I got to do something. And often I can do it. Often I can shift it. Sometimes I have trouble doing it. Sometimes by the end of the day, I still haven't done it. And then I play the tape. I play the recording. And then all of a sudden my mind shifts over because now I'm refocusing on what it is that I want instead of what I don't want. And that's an interesting experience to go through repeatedly.
Mm-hmm.
Because on the one hand, you experience focusing on the frustration, and then moments later, you're focusing on the possibilities and the excitement and the potential.
Mm-hmm.
And that lasts for a while. Usually that lasts throughout the night. I wake up the next morning. I do it in the morning because you're supposed to do it morning and evening with her program. So I do it again in the morning, kind of sets me up for a while. And then I start doing my stuff during the day, and then I start to slide into the frustration mode. And then I do my usual things to try to get out of it. And I sometimes succeed, and other times don't succeed quite as much until I get to the end of the day where I probably need to have some kind of a boost. So I play the tape again, and sure enough, it moves me back. So it's not just a tennis match I'm watching. I am the tennis ball.
You are the tennis ball.
I'm like I'm swinging back and forth between these two realms, the negative
mm-hmm.
realm and the positive realm, the unwanted and the wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And to do that consciously, honestly, it's a little dizzying
mm-hmm.
every day.
It also brings forward how illusionary everything is.
Yes. Isn't that annoying?
Yes. Because, we often blame the way that we're feeling on something tangible right in front of us. Our computer won't work, so you get frustrated.
No, you just call Walt. That's what Louise does. Hey, Walt.
I don't have a Walt.
You don't have a Walt.
That will work on my computer. The other day, we were in the shop here, and all of a solution my computer started making all sorts of noises, and we had to Google it. There was a RAM problem, and I was like, I don't know. Unplug?
Unplug.
Solution to everything. It worked. I still have no idea what was happening there, but I'll figure it out eventually. But a lot of times, especially with money, people will say, I'm so frustrated and I'm so stressed because of money. But we go back to the scenario that you were just talking about. Let's say the source of your frustration was money, or fear was from money right in that moment. Mm-hmm. Well, when you listen to that tape, nothing changed.
Nothing
physically.
Changed.
Nothing changed.
Mm-hmm.
And yet everything changed. You changed. You changed the way that you feel. So it's not the external world that is causing the reaction. It is you responding. You are causing the reaction to everything. So if we can change that response, we can change what we're seeing.
Which is a great thing. But it's also very annoying when you realize consciously that that's what you're doing. Because you feel like, especially, I'm 65 now. I would have thought I would have figured this one out by now.
Yeah.
Really, that's what I would have reasonably thought. I could have figured this out by now. And yet I haven't. That just shows how tenacious this stuff really is.
Absolutely. I wrote down this quote this morning, and it's not finished, but I think it's a really important piece of what we're talking about. Let me see if I can find my thought from this morning. Okay. An abundant life, because everybody wants abundance in their life. Right?
Absolutely.
An abundant life is not a life void of any negative feeling.
Right.
Like frustration or worry.
Mm-hmm.
So because we live in the third dimensional reality where polarity exists, good, bad, dark, light, well, there's both sides of it. But it is your perception that makes the biggest difference. If you could change your perception on frustration, where frustration doesn't feel so gross anymore, you're like, oh, I'm frustrated. I'm just going down the wrong path. Silly Walt or silly Jody.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I started to do with myself when I started to fall back into these old patterns, is I got to a point where I'd start laughing. Like, oh, here we are again.
It's a good defense. I like it. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'm letting go of the attachment of being frustrated and what being frustrated means. My attachment to frustration before, or fear before, was I was doing something wrong. things weren't working and I'm not where I want to be.
Mhm.
And I don't want to seed any of that into
No.
my reality. So every time that I went with the frustration all the way down the, death spiral that it created for me, I would go the opposite direction of where I wanted to go. So instead, when I would get frustrated, it would be like my red light indicator of,
Yeah.
for me, it was anxiety. It was my light on the dashboard where I stop. And I would laugh because I could see the pattern, just like you're talking about the ping pong ball. And instead of being frustrated that I was doing it, I would laugh because I could then see, I could detach from the whole thing. And then I could see it's not exactly the same. My frustration in this moment or my anxiety in this moment is completely different than the anxiety that I had yesterday. I'm getting a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better, or a lot better depending on the day.
That's a good day when it's a lot better.
Yeah.
That's a really
100%.
good day. Yeah.
But you get used to, with this exercise, what I've done for myself is that it's become stepping back from the good and bad and choosing the response. Like, okay, that is perceivably bad, whatever that is. Okay, well, it doesn't have to be. I don't have to respond in the same way that I did before. I can choose to respond differently instead of getting involved with it. I see you. Thank you for telling me. I'm working in an old pattern here. Thanks so much. And I don't want to be there. Let's do something different.
Thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah, thanks, but no thanks. Yep.
You've been flying, teasing there. Thank you for flying. Please move out. Go out onto the tarmac. Never come back. Thank you.
Yes, that's right. Or you will be ejected.
Or you'll be ejected without a parachute.
Without a parachute. Yeah. Hurry. Time's wasted.
Oh, I love it. That's funny. That's good. I like that. Yeah. I do know that I do that at times. I think I probably need to do it a little bit more often, but nevertheless, I've been able to do that. Interestingly though, and I think a lot of people have experienced this, probably almost everybody have experienced this. There are times where even if you do know that you have the ability to choose what your response is going to be, there are times when your brain just doesn't let you go there.
Nope. Yep.
Just doesn't.
I 100% agree. And the more that you try and fight it, when you're in that state, the heavier, for me anyway, it becomes.
Oh, for me too.
The bigger it gets, the scarier
really
it gets, the more I have like an all-out panic attack. And in those moments, sometimes you just want to be mad or frustrated, and it sounds stupid. But there's these times where you just want to be upset with your husband or your wife. You're like, oh, I could just poke your eye out. And you're not ready to let go of that feeling for whatever reason. So I give myself like a time limit. Okay, you want to be mad about it? You want to have a tantrum? You want to be crazy? Great. Awesome. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's put a bubble around you so that you're not attracting bad things or you're afraid of attracting bad things. Put a bubble around you. Now you can punch a pillow. You can scream. You can cry. Whatever it is to move it through your system. You want to be mad? Let's be mad, Jody Lynn.
It's beautiful. I like that. Yeah. Oh, sure. That's very effective. And it's probably something we all need to do more often. Because we all have a tendency, I think, especially males, but probably true for all of us. We all have this tendency to hold the emotion in rather than let it out because we think it's a bad emotion. We think it's not right. We shouldn't be there. We shouldn't be doing that. We're attracting the wrong thing, yada, 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 yada. When in fact, we got to get it out. Yep. Until you get it out, very often it's just going to hang around and say, here I am.
It's going to creep its ugly head back up. Hey!
I'm back again.
Yeah. And then it will get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger because it's just building. You need to get it out.
Sometimes I physically just need to walk away.
Yep.
Which is kind of an odd thing. It means I'm associating the feeling with a location, which is true. Yeah. I do associate a feeling with a location very, very often. And I just physically walking away from it I can even repeat how I do it. I walk away from it and I go,
and then it's gone.
Well, not entirely gone, but it's greatly reduced. Let's put it that way. It's dramatically reduced. And depending on how long I can stay away from it, sometimes you have to get right back to something if it's an emergency situation. But most of the time, you can stay away from it for a while. And when you stay away from it, then the goal, in my mind anyway, the goal is to see what I can do to treat it like I've left it behind. Yeah, I know. There's a piece of me that knows I have to go back to it at some point, maybe 5 minutes from now. Who knows? But for the moment, for right now, let's just leave it behind because I'm not there right now.
Yeah.
So since I'm not there right now, let's take advantage of it. Okay, I'm not there right now. Great. I wonder what I can do to just pretend like that's the way it is from now on.
Yeah. I never go back there again.
Well, we went to the beach last week. Or not last week, actually on Monday. We went to the beach on Monday. I needed a beach day badly. I went to the beach and I was commenting to Louise. I was really, I don't know, impressed isn't quite the right word. I was pleased with myself. Let's put it that way. I was pleased with myself because I was really in the now moment of it. I got to the point until she mentioned something about the business, which I wish she hadn't done. But up until that point, I'd forgotten about the business. I'd forgotten about all the troubles associated with it, which were the reasons why I wanted to go do the beach day.
Yeah.
And I was just observing the water. I was just observing the people walking by, people playing in the sand. I was just right there in that now moment.
Yep.
And that's where I really appreciated in a big way how powerful now can be. Because now is a great way to leave that crap alone, even if it's only for an hour or 5 hours or 5 minutes or whatever it is. Just leaving it behind detunes it from your system. It just turns it off.
Yep. Gives your system a chance to have a break.
Yeah. That break is huge.
Recalibrate.
The hardest part was getting in the car to go home afterward.
Marijuana. Yeah, that's what I said to you when we first got on. Is that I'm still in like vacation mode.
Yeah.
I'm just, I don't know. I feel like Jamaican vibes where it's just everything all right, man. Like, it's just slower paced and just, and I don't know what it is. Yeah.
That's what I call that. It's a Caribbean mindset.
Yeah.
Because I think one of the big benefits of either visiting the Caribbean or a place like that, or living there for that matter, is that there isn't a whole lot of things you can do there. There aren't a lot of places you can go to. There are a few, but there aren't a lot of them. So you're basically forced to relax.
Yeah.
Because there's no other option at that point.
And just be. Yeah.
Just be. Yeah. Yeah. And so and anyone who's ever been to a resort destination like that knows the people who are native live that way.
Yeah.
They live in a much slower mindset, a much slower lifestyle. There's no hurry. No hurry, man. No hurry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Everything will happen in divine timing. It's like almost this new layer of trust.
Yeah.
And it's built into their society, but imagine you could bring that here, that relaxation, that peace.
Well, apparently you have. That's what you're reporting.
Yeah. I feel great.
It's fabulous. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's a great place to be. That's really the way, that's where the abundance is, by the way. It's all in that mindset right there.
Yep.
So that's why I say congratulations, because once you've achieved that for any amount of time, that's a victory. That's a massive victory.
It's funny that we're talking about this because I was thinking about that last night and this morning, and I put a story on my Instagram. Cause last night I went outside and I helped my hubby, do some things, which means I sat there and I watched him, and then he's like, "Oh, can you hold this up?" And I'll hold one thing for 2 seconds, and then I'll go back and sit down. And then he'll be like, "Oh, can you just hold this thing over here for 2 seconds?" That is the extent of what I help with, because I'm not as strong as he is, or I'd also not like skilled at carpentry. So I just don't. But I just sat in that moment last night and I was reveling in the sky. We have these beautiful, it looks like cotton candy, pink and blue, sunsets. And it's just gorgeous. So I love being outside. I love that sky. It's just so magical. And my love language is quality time. So I was getting what I needed from Nate because we were having a conversation as he was cutting different things, and we were talking about life and talking about just different things. So it was filling up my cup, and he's acts of service. So it was filling up his cup. And I was also filling up all the other cups that I have because I was in nature, which I love to do. It was a culmination of all of these things that I love. And I felt so abundant and, just so blessed in that moment. And I was thinking about it because something that I do often is I reevaluate my life and my day. And I teach this in phase 3, Abundance on Autopilot, in the Fluid Money Blueprint of redesigning your day so that you're doing more of the things that you love to do, so that you're in alignment with that frequency that you're trying to create or that you're wishing to create. And so that was the whole point of it is reevaluating your life, and are you doing the things that you love to do? Because, it would have been just as easy last night to say, no, I'm pretty tired. I'm just going to sit on the couch and watch TV, which is something I like to do as well. Sometimes I do that, but I'm constantly reevaluating, and on paper, at least every 6 months, I ask myself, what do I like? What do I love? And I rewrite a list for myself because we get stuck in this loop, this hamster wheel of doing things the exact same way all the time. And then it becomes this groove. And then we forget to appreciate the beauty that is all around us and feel that abundance, that joy, that bliss, and that love.
I love that. That's perfect, because appreciation, we already know the value of appreciation. Appreciation is huge. It's not only a way to rewrite your mental script, but it's also a way to rewrite your experiential script. What you actually experience in life comes out of the appreciation. So it works beautifully both ways. So, I've heard many people talk about deliberate processes for appreciation. I like the way that you said it. I don't remember exactly how you phrased it, but you keep going back to it over and over again, and you rewrite the list. Yeah. You redo the exercise.
Yeah. Cause I think I'm different. Every day I'm different. For sure. Every 7 years, your whole body is anew.
True.
From what I understand, you regenerate. So,
well, actually, most of it you regenerate in a month or so. So, yeah.
Well, there you go. Yeah. So you're constantly changing. It's worth coming back to that and asking yourself, what do I like to do? And when I did the exercise for the very first time, it was, I don't know. What do I like to do? And I was telling this to a friend, a couple of weeks ago, that I do this process and I teach this process of like reevaluating your life and what you like to do. And so you can do more of those things and you can have more of your life in joy, in bliss, in love, and all of the feelings that you want to experience more of. Yeah. You're just seeding it in every moment. And she's like, so what do you do? And I'm like, well, I like to paint, but only sometimes. Like I have a painting that it's paint by numbers.
Okay.
I'm not an artist, outside of coloring within the lines. I can do that. And I really wish that I was an artist in terms of I could paint an entire painting without coloring in the lines. But I just haven't had the teacher to teach me, nor have I taken the time to learn how to do that. But paint by numbers.
Well, actually, if you take courses, I haven't taken courses, but I have talked to enough people who are artists to know that this is true. Professional artists, famous artists, they draw within the lines. They draw the line first. Oh. And then they paint within the lines.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
See? Well, I'm becoming a professional artist.
So there you are. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
That was actually part of the Vermeer method, actually.
Really?
The Vermeer method for creating a painting was to combine painting with photography, or the principles of photography, I should say.
Yeah.
So he would literally, I forget what they called it, but there was a particular box that was very much like an old style camera that would put the image onto his surface area. And I don't remember what the surface area was, where he would do his work. So he basically was filling in lines and filling in paint on an image that was already on his canvas, so to speak.
So it was like almost like an Elmo or something, like a projector?
Kind of. Yeah. Yeah.
That's so cool.
And he produced amazing paintings doing that.
Yeah. Well, I have a beautiful one. And where I was going with this is that I needed something else. I found myself in that hamster wheel loop. This was probably, 2020, 2021, somewhere in there. long after I had done the exercise. And I remember thinking like, I'm watching TV simply to pass the time by. Like I noticed that I was on my phone playing a game and watching TV at the same time. So I'm obviously not engaged in either one of those things. So it made me question, is this something that is filling my soul right now? And if the answer is yes, awesome. That's exactly what you want. I don't care what the activity is. Is it filling your soul? Yes. Okay, great. Keep going. As long as it fills your soul, I think continue to do it. But at that time, I was like, no, I'm bored with this TV show, but it was the middle of winter or something. So going outside is a no-go in Canada for most times of the winter because it's too cold.
Too freaking cold.
Right? So I needed something else. And I was like, I don't really want to read a book, whatever. So then that's when I started the Paint by Numbers and I loved it. I fell in love with it. I find that I go through these cycles every couple of months where I do a lot of painting or I do a lot of reading or I do a lot of like documentary watching or, Grey's Anatomy, if you will, whatever it is. I go through these cycles, but I'm mindful as I'm going through them. Is this filling my cup? And what do I love to do? Because if I don't love doing this right now, why am I doing it?
Yeah, very, very important point. I think a thing that goes along with it too is making it easily accessible.
Yeah.
And I say that because this past January, actually Christmas, my brother gave me an electronic keyboard. I've mentioned that a few times here on the show.
Yeah.
Well, there was a whole story involved. It ended up being an electronic keyboard. We'll leave the rest of the story out. And I have it right behind me here where I do the podcast on a table, on a desk actually, right near where I do most of my work throughout the day. So I always see it. It's so easily accessible. And because it's so easy to access it, I use it all the time.
That's awesome.
Not all day long, but like almost every single day, there's at least 5 minutes, often a half hour, maybe even an hour, where I just put everything aside. I turn on the keyboard, put on the headphones and just play or try to play.
Yeah.
And getting better over time because I'm doing that. It's like anything else. You keep doing it over and over and over again, and it'll sound like crap at first, but after a while it starts to sound like something. It starts to sound pretty good. But like you said, also it fills the soul. And it's a great way of expressing it because what I experience is I could tell I'm going to feel better when I do it. And I sit down and I feel better when I do it. That to me is the filling the soul part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it's crazy how often we miss even feeling it. We just become like robots in our life. And like we go from work to home and we make, dinner and then you have your routine after dinner and then it just becomes so routine and you end up missing it. And I've been guilty of this. I'm not perfect at it to this day. I don't think I'll ever be perfect at it because I think that's the human experience.
Right.
And experiencing it differently as you are different.
Mm-hmm.
But the importance of not getting stuck and missing your entire life, because that's what prompted the entire change for me and getting into the coaching industry and building the Fluid Money Blueprint and all of this stuff was really, I was missing my life. I was just working 12 hours, 13 hours a day, whatever, 7 days a week, trying to hustle, spent no time with my family, spent no time outside of work. That was the only thing that was important. And I wasn't enjoying it anymore. It was just, I have to do this. I have to do that. And the song was stuck in my head. It's a country song. I don't even remember who it's by, but it's I run and run. I rush and rush to get things done. I don't know why. How does it go? Something about, I rush and rush to get things done, but I don't know why. Because all I have to do is live and then die. But I was always in this rush in my life to get to the next thing. So these beautiful trips that I would go on or these cool, exciting things that I would do, I have memories of them, but I wasn't present. I was waiting to get to the next thing. Even in those fun moments in my life, I wasn't in them. I was just, let's get through it to the next thing. And I was missing my life and I don't want to do that.
You're right, because that's really one of the biggest mistakes we can make. And I've made it myself too. I think we all have to one extent or another. It's also a bit of a victory, I think, the first few times that we managed to actually be in that moment.
Yes.
To actually noticed that I wasn't thinking about what was happening tomorrow. I was thinking about what was going on right here.
Yeah.
I was exploring all the elements of it. I was experiencing the details of it. I was appreciating the details of it. That was the beach experience or on Monday. That whole experience was going on right then, right in that place, right at that time. There was no other time. There was no other place.
Yeah. And when you're in that moment, it becomes even more magical. It's like the volume is turned up. The brightness is turned up. Everything, you almost become childlike. It's just this sense of wonder, like, wow, look at that. And I do it all the time with things. Like, we'll be driving and I'll be like, oh my God, look, it looks like a shark in the clouds. And I'll just get so excited because I'm in this moment. My husband will be like, oh my God, you're so weird. I mean, it's a good laugh for him, but I live with so much more soulfully and so much more blissfully and fully, because I'm here in this moment. And people might think that I'm crazy or stupid or whatever, but I feel great.
Yes.
And that's what matters.
That is what matters. Mm-hmm. And all the rest of that stuff about what other people might think is a bunch of horse. What?
Yeah.
It really is.
Exactly.
It has absolutely no relevance at all.
Yep.
And any time that we have that little voice saying that it does have relevance, we can say, hey, guess what? You have no relevance.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. My dad, when I was very young, said to me, you come into this world alone and you leave alone. So the only person that you truly have is you. So you might as well be your own best friend.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah. So I've taken it to heart. Like, she's my best friend. Yeah. And I do everything with her. She goes everywhere with me. Like, it's all these experiences, that I get to experience in this lifetime.
I like the phrase strands of source energy. I like that way of describing who we are in the grand scheme of the energy of all that is.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to think about the strands of energy doing exactly what you just described. Strands of energy becoming humans, becoming animals, becoming rocks and trees, becoming plants. I mean, becoming all kinds of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But ultimately becoming.
Yeah.
And then being. I wouldn't want to be a tree, but imagine being a tree for a moment, because a tree absolutely lives in the now.
Mm-hmm.
Totally, completely in the now. There's really not a whole lot more to do as a tree.
Yeah.
So you have to live in the now.
Mm-hmm.
And while I don't want to be a tree, I can imagine strands of source energy choosing to be a tree just for the experience of living continuously in the now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you talk about experiences, because we're so, we've convinced ourselves that there is good and there is bad. And then when you say try to appreciate the bad things that have happened, people are like, what? How can you have appreciation for those things? And we've had these conversations before, right?
Sure.
But when you take a really giant step back and you think about it as strands of source energy, looking at all of the catalog of experiences that you could have, and you're not attached to the emotion of going through said experience, some of these things that we perceive as gut-wrenching or so horrific, you could imagine that strand of source energy sitting back without that attachment of all of those feelings and thinking, ooh, that could be fun. That would be interesting. Ooh, what a way to experience. What an experience to have. And when you can start looking at it from that stance, you can start to step back in this human form, in this third dimension, step back and start appreciating more of the things that you thought were bad and seeing silver linings, I think, within them.
One of the best teachings that I've received about how to deal with the good and the bad in life is to not think about things as good or bad, but to think about them as preferred or not preferred. I can't say that I succeed in doing that all the time. I do not. There are many times where I find myself thinking about something as being really bad and I really don't like that thing. But when I can remind myself of it, of the fact that I'm better off not thinking about it in terms of good or bad, because there's a whole bunch of baggage associated with that, but rather thinking in terms of, I like this or I don't like this. I prefer this or I don't prefer that.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I'm in that space, when I can get there, I'm in a winning space at that point, because I know once I'm there, then I can also conclude there's nothing wrong with preferring something, and there's nothing wrong with not preferring something. They're
Yeah.
both totally acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
So now,
What do you want?
so now, well, also now when I want to face that thing of, how do you appreciate something that is bad? It's now easier.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I'm in that space, then I can say to myself, well, first of all, it's not bad. Second of all, it's just not preferred. And just because I don't prefer it doesn't mean there's no value in it.
Mm-hmm.
And now all of a sudden I'm thinking about this thing in an entirely different way.
Mm-hmm. Completely different vibrational energy from one state to the other.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
So that's one of my favorite tools. No doubt about that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also loving how much we're spending on now today. We're talking about now. We're talking in the now, by the way. just saying.
We are right now.
People are listening to us in the now. How about that? Welcome to the now.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking, I mentioned this to Louise on Monday. I said, I think I'm coming up with these ideas for stuff to put on t-shirts. And we started brainstorming a few of them. And one of the ones I came up with is welcome to now.
Mm.
A reminder to myself and everybody else, this is it. Where you are right now, that's now. And this is wonderful. It's a wonderful place to be.
Yeah.
Just need to stay here for a bit. It's a good place.
Yeah. Yeah. You just got to get comfortable with being in the now. I think that, a lot of our feelings of uncomfortableness, I don't know if that's a word, but
it is now.
It is now. Being in the now moment and being present comes from our society and the way that it's been built of, fear of missing out and like, I got to be over here and I got to do this and I got to go fast and there's so much to do and there's not enough time and all of these things. And that's what stopped me for a long time from being in this now moment is if I'm here and I'm present, then I will miss something later or I'm going to lose out on something. And that's not true because I was losing out on this now moment consecutively over and over and over and over and over again, which was a culmination of my life. So I was missing out on my entire life because I was afraid of missing out on the future. When you start to think about it like that, it's like, oh, that's crap. Okay. I'm coming back to here and now because it's the only moment that exists.
It also reminds me of one of Louise's ideas for what to put on a t-shirt. What phrase would you put on a t-shirt? And she wanted to use the one from the Ted Lasso series, be curious, not judgmental.
Ooh, I like that.
I love that. That's really
I'd buy
great.
that t-shirt.
Yeah, that's a good t-shirt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Among other things, it's a great conversation starter.
Yeah.
And it also messes with the heads of people who love to be judgmental.
Mm-hmm.
Which I have to admit, I like that. It's sort of like a curious way.
A curious poke.
Yeah, it's a curious little poke. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think about what the character Ted Lasso said when he brought that phrase up during the show. And I've detailed it before, so I won't do it again. But the gist of it was he had been judged all of his life. And then he finally realized after seeing that phrase written on a wall somewhere that the people who did the judging, he had nothing to do with it. They were judging just because they judged everything and they judged everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Their life was about judging people and judging things, judging experiences and being the judge and expressing, and here's my judgment about this. And I have the final word and all this other kind of stuff. And they never actually took the time to know him, to know who he was, because they were so busy judging.
Mm-hmm.
We can tear down judging all we want, but really the big problem with judging is it distracts us from finding out who we are and who our friends are and who our people are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Who
they
are
really
ourselves.
are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because all that judgment gets in the way.
Mm-hmm.
Scrape all the judgment away and all of a sudden it's an entirely different conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It's an entirely different experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's an entirely different way of dealing with people and experiencing people. And, oh, by the way, appreciating people.
Mm-hmm.
Which is my favorite part of it.
Yeah. But I think removing the judgment for a lot of people means exposing themselves as well. They
Sure.
judge everybody else so they can put up this wall. If I judge all of these people, no one will ever get close enough to judge me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's a defense mechanism in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which also doesn't work very well, does it?
No. I found with every area of my life, whether it was sales or relationships or money, the more vulnerable I was willing to be with, this is what I've gone through and this is me, and, releasing the judgment I had for myself over these things, and stopping, the chatter for the most part of like, what else, what are other people going to say, or what are they going to do? But the more that I leaned into that vulnerability and I let people just see it, whatever it was, the more people respond.
Mm-hmm.
It was an interesting sales tactic, and it was coming from a genuine place.
Mm-hmm.
When I first started my brokerage business, I was calling all the people I know. They call that, your hot market. Call everybody you know and ask them to sit down with you. Okay, great, whatever. But there'd be these people that I held in high esteem. I thought the world of them, and I thought that they were going to judge me, or they were going to, I don't know, be mean to me if I asked them to sit down with me, or be like, you don't know anything, like you just started in the industry, or I don't know. I just expected all of these things. And so what I would do with somebody who I really looked up to is I would lead with that. I would open the conversation with, I really look up to you, and obviously the genuine things that I felt about them, not the, I wasn't trying to sugarcoat them, just the genuine things that I felt about them. And then I would admit I was afraid to make this call, because I wasn't sure, what you would say, but I would really love to sit down with you and show you what I do. If it's not a fit for you, that's okay, but you might know somebody. And as soon as I said that, how I genuinely felt about them, and just put my fear out there, the fear of being judged, or the fear of them not liking me, or thinking poorly of me, or whatever the fear was, I was afraid to call you, just saying that because I think so highly of you. And, I don't want you to be mad at me for whatever reason. I don't know, whatever it was. When I would say that, their complete demeanor would change.
Wow.
They went from being guarded to being receptive, because I was being authentic and I was being completely open and vulnerable. And when somebody is that way with you, I think it's human nature to kind of put your arms around them and hold them up.
Yeah, you're trying to help them at that point.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you take yourself out of the role of being the targeted sales prospect, and you put yourself into the role of being the father figure or the mother figure, helping your good friend to deal with a new situation that he or she is afraid of or uncertain about, or scared about, how people are going to react, or not feeling good about themselves or whatever. Yeah. Complete shift going on there. Really
complete shift. And I use this today too. There's a lot of people that will just, show up in your inbox on Facebook or on Instagram or whatever, and just try and sell you something. Oh, yeah. And it annoys me. Like, oh, hey, how are you? And you can feel it. You can feel it the moment they enter your inbox. You can feel whether they're genuinely trying to get to know you, or they're trying to get something from you.
Right.
And I would again lead with that vulnerability with people I didn't know or didn't know well, or, they were kind of whatever. They were a contact of mine that I had met in some life form, fashion, whatever, right? I would lead with that honesty of what I wanted to talk to them about and what I was genuinely interested in, instead of trying to beat around the bush and try and like sneak attack them or something. Yeah.
It's an amazing thing. The more direct you are, the less it feels like a sales pitch.
Mm-hmm. And the more people appreciate it. Yeah. If you came to me and said, Jody, I want you to help me sell this or whatever, if you just told me that, you would have way more of a chance of, me looking at the product or even buying the product or whatever it is. Just don't pretend you want to be my friend when you don't. That's annoying.
Yeah. That's a really good point too.
Mm-hmm.
This is really, really good. It's a good point to end the conversation on too, because we're coming up at the top of the hour. One thing that I haven't done with you in a while, and I'm going to do it here because I do it with every guest that comes on. That I did, because I did it with you the first time you were on the show. But as a co-host, you deserve to get this more often. So I'm going to give it to you right now. You got to tell people how to reach out to Jody Lynn. Tell people how to find out about that course, because you've talked about the course a lot, but we really haven't pointed people to it. So how do they find the course, and how do they reach you?
Yeah. Best way to reach me is through Instagram. It's just Jody Lynn Craven. You'll see my pretty face. When you find me on the app, I can't remember what I'm wearing, so I can't tell you, but, there, I respond to all my messages personally. So if you message me there, I will eventually see it and respond back to you. If you want to take a look at the course, I have a free webinar that you can go through where I teach you a whole bunch of stuff about shifting your mindset, 3 mistakes entrepreneurs typically make. And then I go into what is the Fluid Money Blueprint and how you can get access to it. And that's all on the link in my bio. Worst case scenario, if you got none of that, just go to jodylyncraven.com and a little pop-up window will come up saying, hey, you want to watch a free webinar? Or you can just contact me directly from there.
All right. So we'll make sure we get a link to jodylyncraven.com so they can see the little pop-up and they can find it the easy way that way. We like to make things easy.
Absolutely. Or I can give you the direct link right to the webinar.
Okay. Well, either way.
Yeah.
I kind of like the idea of sending them to jodylyncraven.com.
Sure.
Just because there's a branding association there. I mean, not because it's the brand, but because there's the association.
Yeah.
Well, it becomes easy. I can remember that. So
Yeah.
we'll put that in. That sounds good. Well, as usual, this has been wonderful. Thank you very, very much. I'm always a little sad when we have a guest cancel, but when they cancel on a Wednesday, I'm always a little bit happy because
I know.
talk about
Me
stuff,
too.
right?
And I was missing you guys last week. I wasn't here
know.
because I was on vacation.
How did that go, by the way? Did you have a great time? It was
Awesome.
your friend's wedding, wasn't it? Right?
It was, and I was
Yeah.
the MC. So I was in the wedding and I was an MC. So
You were a busy lady. Yeah.
I was a busy lady, but I loved doing it and just basking in the glory of other people's love for one another and the people within the party and everybody that came. It was a very special moment to be a part of.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful way to wrap it up. So thank you, Jody. We will see you next week. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere, and we will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.